So thank you for coming to begin with. I'm going to be teaching you a lot of like little techniques. The most important thing for me today is not to have a finished painting. That's what's over there for you. But from that painting, I am going to do specific areas so you understand why to do different techniques. So that's my goal. Also, I consider working with whites as two steps. It's one thing to keep the whites with some kind of masking, which I'm showing you various types of masking. But it's also important to, once you remove the mask, how do you integrate the whites so they don't look so artificial? So that's my goal today. So when you look at this painting, I think there are three very distinct whites. So when I look at the what we have over here, way over on the left, you're seeing what I'll call the most crisp, the whitest white against the darkest dark. When I think of the middle section, I think of that as something receding. The whites are softened and given you a very lush feeling, so it recedes in space. And then the third one I wanted to do is for the demo is also to show you that let's make some rough texture of white. So that's the reason why I chose this subject as opposed to a flower that I'm cutting out, a petal that I'm holding white. You know, that's kind of straightforward. But here's the nugget. When you use a mask, think of what texture do you want to create. So I'm saying there are three different types of texture. I know in my promo I said this, the Frisket liquid mask, but I'm also going to demonstrate using tape, which is two forms. One is your masking tape, and then the other is your packing tape. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about liquid masking. The product that you're seeing is the product that I like the most, but what's really interesting about this is it can come in different colors. Of course, there's a lot of different manufacturers. I've tried out a lot of them. I just want you to know that some blue, not this one, will stain the paper. I've seen the vanilla color stain the paper as well. So just know that you have to test it. But in my opinion, this is the one that I enjoy. And I don't get any credit for it. So. Also, you don't want to shake this because it creates bubbles. So what I always do is every once in a while come around and I just turn it in my studio when I can remember. If you hear stuff moving around, if you see lumps, if you have when you open it up, that's the case, throw it out because that's already too old. And when I think about this product and how we can use it, there's different tools that I want to work with. I've already started with some samples, and what I'm going to do is add to this so that you can see how I'm working with it. One of the reasons why I like the blue is because I can see the difference between what I'm trying to frisk. So look at the tools that I'm suggesting. The one that I think is the most unexpected is this. When you use your brushes, the Frisket, which is rubber cement, makes your bristles and such like really crappy, and you can't use that brush anymore. So I thought, what the heck? Let's get some of these sponges. Let's clip into it. I use it. I throw it away. So that is one that I enjoy. We all know about the lovely toothbrush. And what about Q-tips? So I'm going to demonstrate those right now. I'm going to save this for the best. The question was, do I use a ruling pen? What I do use is this as opposed to a brush. And this is, I'm going to talk about in a second. So, I always like to put my frisk into a separate flat container Now, I need to understand from the person way in the back. Can you see this part of, you're wearing the black and the white blouse. Can you, yes, can you see this right here in your screen? Perfect. So, do you see how there's some stripes? Well, that's what's created with this brush. So here we go. I now have some stripes over here. I can also blot. So that's one use. Let's put that aside. I think one of my favorite is to say, I don't give a hoot, and flick. And I think for me, when I'm using any kind of masking, I'm thinking more in terms of, I just want to have fun with it, because I always can cover it up. So here we go. Just a little more over here. Dab. Q-tip. Q-tip leaves a... Perfect. Can you see it here? Was that a yes? Yes. Thank you. You can go like this. Okay. So these items, with the exception of this brush, work really, really well, so you don't have to ruin your brushes. But if you really still want to have something that is more like a line, then you want this, a shaper or a pusher. So they come in different sizes, and I chose this one so you can see it. So again, I'm going to go back to you way in the back. You can see this okay? Perfect. So think of this truly as a brush. So if I want to have a broad mark, then I can lay it flat and pull. If I want to have a thin mark, again, I'm assuming you can see this. Yes? Okay. And I'm using this just like any other brush. I'll even write my name. I'll put a letter on here.
Is that a rubber tip?
It's all rubber tip. It's wonderful. And all you do is wipe it, and you don't have to worry about anything as far as ruining anything. So let me just do another little mark here. Okay. So notice that I'm saying that it says up there shaper, correct? I was trying to find rubber-tipped brush. It's under the name shaper, so that's why I'm saying that very specifically.
Are you saying shaper?
Shaper, however it's spelled right there on that little screen. Shaper. Okay, so with the frisket, and I want to do a little of this. You can cover what I'll call organic shapes. I'm not thinking of things being crisp in the sense of nice and tight. What would be a better use, which would be tape. The first thing I want to do was masking tape. So up in this area, again, you can see this one? Good. So I like to think of masking tape as irregular shapes, but I can always make them more precise by using an X-Acto knife, which I will show. So what I'm simulating here is, if you look at my painting, up in that corner are leaves from the bush, and I wanted them to really feel more irregular. So that's what I'm doing with this. And if I want them to feel more precise for a leaf, then I can use the brush. So you can see how exact I can be depending upon the tool that I'm using. Tape can be used in a different way. And I love this trick with, if you are painting a sailing boat and you've got that thin line that you want to do. So one of the tricks to do is use tape. Now this has nothing to do with our subject matter, but I wanted to show you. Okay, again, everybody can see where I'm at? Good. So I can take this, well, first of all, let me cut a little better. So I have a crisp line, then I take it and I separate it, and then I paint. Yes? Okay. Don't forget, you can do the opposite. You can have paint down, tape, and you can take a damp paper and wipe it off, and it'll give you the reverse. Okay? So I'm going to leave that on. But the other part that I like to use is packing tape. And I know there's another demo, I think that's happening next hour, that they're using packing tape. But the key point with packing tape is you really want to make sure you have good quality. So I really use 3M. I've used some products from dollar store, and the tape was too thin, so it didn't hold very well. So what do I do with that? So I have an area on here where I really want to have a crisp line. So what I do is, this is good for covering large areas. I can overlap it. And then I come with my X-Acto knife, and I just wanted to show how I buy my product as far as the little blades and such. So what I'm doing is, when I'm cutting into the plastic of the packing tape, I'm not trying to cut through the board. So it's kind of like when you're putting your blade down, you're just sort of popping the pimple. You're sort of just popping through the tape so that you can create. And I hope you remember popping the pimple. You know, if you remember a funny phrase, somehow it just sticks. And here we go. I am getting, that's why I'm saying when you do this, right, you're just trying to get through the surface. You're not trying to go deeper. And all I can say is that's the touch. All right, so now that I've done that, I want to lift it. Now, a big part of anything to do with an X-Acto knife is, do you notice how I'm doing it sideways? Can you see that on the screen? So if you do it, you're like trying to pick it off, then you're picking the paper, and that's where your paint's going to settle. So you don't want that to happen. So here we go. I'm picking off this. And let's go here. So I'm looking to see. So when I'm looking at, after putting this all on, I think the hardest part is this painting has a lot of white. So when you look at this, it sort of looks like a mess. It's when you go to do the next step that it really feels awkward. And I think that's, again, the hardest part. So why do we bother again to use masking? It's the idea that I can have a continuous tone of color without any breaks. The question is, does the packing tape tear the paper? I'm using 140 arches, just cold press, so it has a little texture. Does it come off easier if I was using hot press? Probably. But I've had no problem with it coming off. Now, yes, because what I wanted to say is thank you, you reminded me one thing. Once I cut away, go back on the edge, and you want to make sure right at the edge that it's nice and firm so that the paint doesn't go under the edge. So now what I want to do is I'm going to paint this, and what I'm trying to make sure is, let's see, Helen, Does this shine yet? Can you see that this is shiny? Okay, right like that? So this is the packing tape. This, of course, is the liquid mask. And of course, so I just want you to see I have all of those variations on here. And each one will have a different edge after we paint. So now, you have to pretend that all of this frisket is totally dry, because you don't want to mix the frisket with the paint. So that's one part. And then the other part is, I say this is the funnest part of the whole painting.
Did you have some where you don't use a hairdryer on it?
Ah, you are a good plant. So the question was, is there some time you would need a hairdryer? What happens if I use a hairdryer? It sticks, and it tears the paper when you try to remove the frisket. Not necessarily with masking tape. I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with packing tape. It's just the frisket. Okay. Oh yeah, leaving it in the sun is not good for anything. It's rubber, so it goes into the paper. All right. This is my image. Now, I have a tendency when I'm painting. What time do we go to? 2:50? Okay, because I started late. 2:15, thank you. All right, I'm doing okay then. I have a tendency to have a brush for each color when I'm painting big. So, and then that way, I don't have to stop. This is a relatively new product for me, and I'm really enjoying it. And I saw a note from Cheap Joe's. He said one of the few things that I like that I've done recently that helped my painting, ceramic palette. This one is a 5. They take the same size and they make it, I think, 7 or 9, but then they have the rectangular one. The paint sits and blends differently. I would never have thought that. So I'm not getting anything on that one either. So, but just know that I'm finding that product working really nicely. So here's my palette. And I think I will just start.
Notice you don't have any yellow there. Is that specifically because of that, some of the way you're mixing this?
The question was, I noticed you don't have any yellow. And the answer is because I'm using my raw sienna as yellow. And I want to create more contrast of white against a dark environment. So I'll add yellow in my where my greens are, but you know that will show up. So I'll give you an example for the greens. Come on. I love using tissue because it absorbs more. And I know I need another brush. Viridian, a lot of people are not very comfortable using Viridian. I think Viridian's a wonderful translucent dark. It does stain. But it's a wonderful color to mix with. Okay, I think I want to go. So anytime that I'm working with nature, for those who know me, nature is random. So, and for every time that we have, there we are, it's my last brush. any kind of green, I always try to use some kind of red, because it would be too easy to everything in this color. It's dark, it's brown, who cares? So for me, I like the fact that Kathy before me said she's a colorist, she loves color, and so what am I doing? I'm just going to be putting down what I call my first try, my first pass. And let's go a little more red back here. I am conscious that anything that I do in nature, that cooler colors are in the back, and I'm pushing that in this particular piece, and warmer colors are in the front. And let's go darker here. So, you know, nature's random, so let's have some fun with this. All right, so I'm a big believer, as in Kathy, that putting things down in layers. So you can see what's beginning to resist in this. And this is showing you that next step. So I did a second one, so you didn't have to worry about waiting for things. And it's one thing when you looked at that, all of that masking, and it's like, what a mess, right? But it's another thing when you get this and you're going, oh my goodness. Of course, I wouldn't say goodness. So, but you can see how I am getting the certain warm colors here, etc. And so here, when I'm looking at this particular one, I wanted you to see some of the details of how that, here is where I painted the leaf. Can you zoom in on this, sir? You cannot. I knew that Ron could. Okay, you can. And again, hopefully you can see it on there as well. But this is that masking tape. Here's the really crisp line of this is where you had the clear packing tape, and then of course the randomness and such of the liquid frisket. So now I'm going to put these aside. And what I want to do now is when you remove the tape, again, I want to remind you that I'm doing it with sideways when I'm using the X-Acto knife, so I'm not picking it. But I left a piece of the frisket on so you can see what I'm using to remove it. Oh, that's good. It stains good. Ooh. All right. So I have this was white, this rubber eraser. But this is the one that I use it's specific. Some people use this to erase, and it's not meant to remove graphite or anything. This is meant to remove the rubber cement. So again, I'm approaching this subject as though you sort of don't know what this stuff is. So I want you to see I am using a lot of pressure. And some people want to do it with their finger. I don't think I will with my green fingers. So there you go. And it creates these but when I was first shown how to use this, I remember thinking, am I going to tear the paper? And you can see I wasn't tearing the paper. So, okay, so now I just want to be nice. So at this point, this is where I use the white. And the white eraser, because I want to get all of the little stuff that's sort of left by the frisket. I can feel the little more pimples. I want to get rid of the pimples. So I'm just going to hold it sideways. Alrighty. So again, that's the difference of using these products. If everything is pure white, it's flat. And I know when it comes to values, you all are tired of listening to values. This particular little device I like because the bottom row, which is very, very white on one end and it goes to a medium value, think of those as all white. And when you do, that makes your white turn and form. And the same goes with the top part of that strip. If everything is black and it goes to a medium value, think of those as black or dark. And what that does is it gives you an opportunity to move things around. So if I take this section back in here, which you can see better, then this is the part I want to soften, and I want to add a little more of these more medium values. So let's see what we have. So that is this section back here. So there's two ways to make your values to create soft edges. I like to use anything but a scrubber. Okay, be honest. How many people use scrubbers? Okay, what that does is that tears your paper. Because you think you start out like this, and you're like, oh, let me just go a little bit more, and then you start tearing it more. All right, I can see some smiles with that one. So what I use is usually short, either a filbert or an angle, but I'm going to soften an edge. And I'm just, of course, using water. And by the way, okay, is that better? Thank you, thank you. You're being good doobies, letting me know. So all I did, this is just wetting, scrubbing, damping. So this says whatever I do, it's random. So the other thing that to note is if this is a continuous edge that is same quality, that also flattens the object. So now, let me pick up a little blue. So there's a little blue in here. A little bit of green. A little bit of this green. A lot. And I can always come back with my brown. So this is an obvious. I'm using, and because my object is like this, my stroke is like that. In comparison, that if I wanted to have this object to have a soft edge, then this, I'm going to change my brush. That's a better spot again, right? Okay, thank you. So if I want this to be a soft edge, then I'm very conscious of the direction of my stroke, because I want it to be angular. So I want to do a little bit more up here. So a flat or an angled brush, I work my stroke the same. If I'm going, I notice a lot of people don't have filberts for brushes. So, and I love filberts for portraiture because when you put it down, it won't leave a hard mark. And it holds more color, more paint than if I just used a tip of a round. Yep, thank you. All right, I just want to get some of this a little bigger going on here. So now, the second part to making an edge soft is the values. So I want to go back and say to you, when you look at that device to understand value, if you look over here on your right side, the dark against the light has the hardest edge and is coming forward. But if I go on the bottom row and I look towards the bottom left, then that's saying that when the values are similar, the edge is soft, even though they're both crisply painted edges. So I can then make this edge look softer by painting in a value that is similar, but maybe let's make this a little more, there we go. Now I'm not crossing, I'm trying to be a good doobie here. I'm not crossing over the edge. And already, I don't want to make it the same color. I just want to make a point. This already feels softer because of value, not because of color. And if you learn to paint more like that with your shape of that, that's actually very sophisticated painting, more so than just softening an edge. Okay, so that's one section. Let's go to the next section. Did that make sense? Okay. So the next section is the fun one. And that's creating this dry brush. I've always been a person who avoided fan brushes. Okay, how many people have fan brushes? Yay, there's one that's like, yes. But the trick is to try to do it dry brush. So by dry brush, I mean, all right, so let's go, we're going to do it right in here. Okay. I want a medium value, so I'm going to pick up this. 1, you load your brush. 2, you remove paint. And then 3, wherever you put the brush first is where the most paint is. And what you want to do is you want to lay it flat. So the intention is, let me just explain. If I lay it flat, it skips over the paper. If I put it down this way, you're pushing it into the paper. Make sense? So, lay it flat. Notice how I'm holding this very loosely. Oh, I really made it dry brush. So let's do it again. You saw how wet I had that. I won't take as much paint off. Lay it flat. Pull. Oh, that one's good. So another note. If you want to put down more paint, do it slowly. If I put this on and went, then there wouldn't be as much paint there. Okay, I want to do this again. Now this time, I'm going to hold the brush this way, and I'm going to push the brush. Slowly. And because I'm holding it, look how flat I'm holding it. Look how random the edge is. And that's what I'm trying to create in this section of this rough-looking white water. Let's do one more time. Let's add a little more blue, maybe a touch of green. And I'm going to do it right here. I really like the way That worked. Slow, slow, slow. Sorry, I'm having fun. I want to do one more. You're in the mirror. You're in the mirror. Let's do it here. Now, you don't have to you don't have to hold this brush. Slow, slow, flat, turn it. Isn't that cool? So, trick and dry brush, no matter what you're doing, is you load up the brush with paint, you dab off some of the paint, and you hold the brush more this way. Come again? 15 minutes, thank you. I needed that. Is this still wet? I wanted to show you right in here. When I put it down, everybody can see, yes? I'm holding the brush upright. I want you to see how much paint's going down. That's how important it is. So know that about dry brush in general, no matter what you have. Wetter, randomer. Is that a word? Randomer. Okay, so now the next part. I want to talk about this last part. So for that to really come forward, which is this area right in here, and in my painting or my photograph it's here, in order to make this feel the whitest white, I have to have the darkest dark next to it. That's one. But two, I need to have some kind of value in here that is not white. So this is where I use my rounds, and I'm using bigger rounds. Let's double check what we got here. All right, this is another trick I like to share with people. So when you don't have a maul stick, which helps you, the stick that I use my arm, and that really works really nicely. So here is the hardest part of the painting. It's called painting randomly. And the more I don't look, the more betterer it is. And so now I'm going to throw in a little of this. I'll look away. I'll come back and look. And if I look, what happens is your mark becomes too even. We are trained in kindergarten. They did it to us. So, best friend. So it's wonderful to layer, of course. So I need to go the other way. So here is where the darks, see, I put in my medium lights. Now I'm putting in some of my darks. And again, the problem is I'm watching this too much. So, someone tell me a joke. So I'm going to concentrate on one side. And again, notice how I'm holding the brush, because that's the most paint that's going down. All right, look how that's looking different than this. So let me do a little more so you can really see the difference. I love Kathy's comments about every time you pick up color, vary it. Now, would it be easy to do this? Yeah. It'd be easy to paint like this, right? But what is the edge? What's happening? It is splattering. So you want to splatter your color on that's going the other direction of the dark. Let's go a little more here. And I'm looking, and I shouldn't. Yeah, it's beginning to work. But I have a secret weapon. So how many people really do use white? How many people are afraid to use white? White is your best friend. It's wonderful what it can do. Okay, I want to do a little more of this. Now, is the hairdryer plugged in, sir? Thank you. I could use it now because this is the section where I need to add the white. So I call it my secret weapon because it adds back not white, but something in between. So here's the thing to know about using white opaque paint. You want your surface to be 100% dry. That's the first thing. When you put it down, you're going to say, second is you want fresh paint. You don't want to re-wet. Okay, let me do this first. So I like a very specific white, titanium white by Mission Gold. I've tried a lot of different whites. Also, I have used white gouache, titanium white. But the difference is watercolor white paint can be different values. And that's what I wanted to show you. So again, I'm painting large. So I'm using a very big brush for my application. So I want you to realize I'm making this really goopy, soupy, creamy. And when you put it down, you're going to go, oh, this is too white. And I'm going to say to you, it's going to dry differently. Okay, I got to work a little faster here. Again, I'm being too consistent. I'm telling you, it drives everybody. There. Now it's beginning to see it a little. Feel the difference from this to this? Do you see it? You can say yes. Okay, thank you. And even this, I would. Because I want you to see in the original, do you see even in this image over here, the white on the edge is not white. And that is this process that I'm doing. So why? So that I have a transition from this, which is white, to something sort of white, to it doesn't feel fake. So here we go. Yeah, add that. Yeah, that's beginning to happen. All right, so now in this particular image, I just want to add back a couple of darks in this area in particular so that the white shows up even more frothy, more splattered. All right. So, if I look at this section right here, my sample is to show you to soften an edge, it goes back in space. You can create it by wetting where the two edges come together and pulling it over and blotting, or you can paint another shape next to it so that is of similar value and it creates soft edges. So all of these edges recede. Here, I'm trying to show you that you can create very textured surfaces by using dry brush. And I even want to show you how I can do it with a small brush. Do I have anything? Let's do it with that. And again, it's the angle. And you don't have to hold things very hard. Let's go a little darker. There we go. And I'm twirling the brush to give it more of a change when that is going on. So that's the purpose of that. And then in this last section, because right now you're looking at, you see this, but the minute I do this so that you can see what I did here, you can see now there's a difference of the change of the white going from white to here. Those are the three major techniques that I used in that painting. And you can use one of those, thank you. So you can use one of those within yours. So, questions? Yes. I didn't know
Which paints are you using? Who's the manufacturer?
I do like Mission Gold, and those are the ones that I think have a nice, clean, strong. If you are willing to go strong in a color, Mission is my number one. But I love Daniel Smith for its unusual colors. I must admit, those are probably my two dominant ones. Other thoughts? But one of the things I didn't show you is I use the Kleenex two different ways. So today was about randomness. So that means you use it like this. But if I really want something specific, so let's go with right over here. I like to lift with, this will work. Again, you can see this edge? All right, good. So I like to use my angle brush for this. And when I want a specific one, I lay it flat and I do this. And it really makes a difference how you lift. Compared to if I did it, again, if I did it this way, see, my mark would be random. It's a little thing, but when you add it all together, it makes a difference.
Where did you begin this painting? Where did you start in that painting?
The way I started when you saw this
Okay.
and this slide. And let me just go back to the slide. Because when you're doing this, this is where I started.
I see.
And I decided that if I have a lot of white that's unusual, it's easier to have too much and then work it back down than to have too little.
Well, what I thought was interesting is that you might think that the water is just a splash of water, but it has a rock behind it, so it wouldn't be this just a white value.
She's my plant. Other thoughts? Well then, thank you.